York County is so much more than just a stop for gas on I-80. 17 County is filled with unique individuals with unique stories just waiting to be told. Welcome to the 17 County Podcast with your host, Emily Perry.
This is 17 County Podcast. Thank you for tuning in for today's episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and listen. This helps our podcast grow, and we thank you for your continued support. We would also like to take the time to thank our York County Development Corporation members, AgriProducts, Cornerstone Bank, Nebraska Public Power District, and Central Valley Ag. Without these great members, we wouldn't be able to focus on the growth and development of York County here at the YCDC. So thank you. Let's get to the podcast. Today we have Hilary Mundt, recruiter with Advanced Services Incorporated, also known as ASI. Hilary is knowledgeable about what it takes to not only find a job you will enjoy, but also help you land the position. Coming from a history of volunteering and community involvement, Hilary is a wealth of information when it comes to being successful in York County. So thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you, Emily.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to get things started, kind of get comfortable with the interview portion, tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Aurora. I grew up in Grand Island, and then we moved back to Aurora for my high school years. So I graduated from Aurora. I went to college in Hastings. And then not too long after that, what brought me to York would be Champion. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was Redmond Homes. On the south edge of town. So I had a drafting degree and went to work for Redmond Homes as a drafter. That's what brought me to York.
Interesting. Okay. So what was your work experience like kind of leading up to, Champion, and then even where you're at now with ASI? All the way back. All the way back.
Oh boy. Okay. Let's see. My first job ever was at Treetops Cafe in Aurora.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Very exciting.
I was a waitress. Yes. Yep. I eventually got good at that.
It takes a lot of work. It's hard.
Does. It was a very, very busy place. Very busy place. Worked for Matt and Shar. They were amazing people. We all were just kind of like a little family there. And it was a lot of fun. So I was a waitress and then, of course, a lifeguard for years and years and taught a lot of swimming lessons. And then I did that all through college. Lifeguarding and swimming lessons. And then I got back into it as an adult for a short time, helping a little bit at the pool, but swimming lessons I've done off and on for a very long time. So it's something I really love to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you still do swimming lessons?
I try. My schedule gets so filled with other things, but working around my own kids' activities makes it difficult for evening and stuff, but I do still do some lessons, yeah.
Okay. Selfishly, that's very good to know.
We'll see what the summer brings.
Okay, so you lifeguarded, did all of the fun college and high school and some post-college stuff. What came after that?
Let's see. Well, so immediately after college, I worked as a drafter for a company called PMI in Grand Island. And Preventive Maintenance, Inc. Okay. It seems like a lifetime ago. But yeah, so I was a drafter there, and I drew the plans for things like hoppers and, safety rails around grain bins and that kind of thing. A lot of ag stuff. It was interesting, but not as fun as what I really wanted to do at that time, which was to draw house plans, that kind of thing. Yeah. So then the position at Redmond opened up, and I jumped on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long were you there?
Well, funny story. So I was there for a solid 3 weeks. They had a sister company in Colorado close down. And guess what? Someone had seniority over my 3 weeks. So they moved to York and they put them in my position, and then they didn't have room for me anymore. So I had just finally remembered everyone's names and faces. And then I said goodbye.
Darn it.
That was fun. But it was an experience. It was very, very short. But that is what brought me to York. And then I met some people. And honestly, that's kind of, I feel like, if you follow the path my life has taken, it's who you know, and who you meet, and what it leads to, and how valuable it is to network and just pay attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah.
So that led to being asked to apply for a position at Epworth Village.
Oh, good old Epworth.
Yes.
And that is now Epworks, for anyone curious. But what was Epworth? Tell me about that.
Epworth Village, so a residential treatment facility for boys. At one time there were girls, but quite a ways back. So by the time I started there in December of 2000, it was for boys only. And I was there for 11 years. Is that right? Yeah, 11 years. A little more. And learned a lot there.
Yeah.
I didn't live there. I was I was a staff person, but I feel like I grew up a lot there. So, yeah, learned a lot. Worked with kids. So, to explain that a little bit, my bachelor's degree is in criminal justice.
Oh.
So I was a psych-soc major as well.
Okay.
I can never decide. I didn't know what I was going to be someday. So I wanted to, I went to school for everything. So psych-soc major, and then I added the drafting, and then I jumped on that first, and then I ended up at Epworth Village.
What a journey.
Yeah, So, yeah, I learned a lot there. Met a lot of great people that are still very close friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't give enough credit to is no matter what you do, your jobs build on it, each other, and they build your skills, and they build who you are professionally.
Absolutely.
So that's, it's really important. But, okay. So you're at Epworth for ever and a half. Epworth Village, I'm sorry.
Epworth,
So that position, you move on from that, and then what's next?
Well, the last 4 years that I was in Epworth Village, I was in HR, and I did training, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So, everything from CPR, first aid, AED, all those things, to policy procedure updates, and I was involved in the reviewing and renewing and creating of policies and procedures, which can sound really boring, but I'm kind of a nerd, so I really got into that. And then training staff on those updates as they came out, which they were all totally bored with, but again, I feel like I made it fun. And then training it just in general, and realized how much I enjoy that. So I kind of describe myself as a teacher, a coach.
Yeah.
I've always been involved in something to do with that, teaching or coaching or training in some way.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it really got started, professionally, I would say.
Where you learned your love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that mushy? I don't know. But yeah. So you obviously did a lot of hands-on work with individuals, really making sure everything is put into place to make you guys successful and run efficiently and all the fun things that go with HR. You do that, and then
let's see. Well, so my husband and I are suckers for fixer-uppers, let's just say that. So we flipped a couple houses in York. I shouldn't even use the word flip. It wasn't a quick process. It's not like they make it look like on TV, Yeah,
right.
But we renovated a couple houses, we'll say, and both of us really enjoyed doing that. I come from a family of DIYers, and growing up, we were always living in a project. There was always something going on. So we did that, and then, gosh, I've done a kind of a weird variety of things, really.
No, it's interesting. And like I said, it all builds up. It's all important. So,
well, I spent a year with Family Foundations through at the York Elementary School is where our space was. So, and I really loved that because as a psych major, I was very interested in brain science and, how your environment affects you and all of those things and development. So I was only there for a year, but it was very interesting. I learned a lot, and I really loved working with parents with children 0 to 3. And so I did that, and that was amazing. But then my youngest son, who's now 9, put us on bed rest in the hospital. And so after that, I didn't work for about a year and a half. He was born early, and he was in the NICU for a few months. And so
kind of throws a wrench in
just
things.
put a little pause.
Yeah.
On me working. And then after that, actually, I was able to go to work when he was able to go to a daycare again, when he was strong enough and RSV season was over. And and all of that. So my first job after that was at Wessels.
And for those of you who don't know, what is Wessels?
Well, I hope you all do know, because Wessels Living History Farm is one of my favorite places, just south of York, and it's an educational nonprofit. The purpose is to teach people where their food comes from and to show people what life was like on a Nebraska family farm. And it's set up as a 1920s family farm. And we have bus after bus after bus from schools. We do a lot of school trips, a lot of different things we can do on the farm. We see a lot of guests there. There's always hundreds of people from out of country, let alone the people we see from out of state. So it's pretty amazing looking through our guest book at the end of the year, counting up how many people travel, crossroads of the Midwest. So the location obviously has something to do with that. It's a wonderful place for that because people just kind of stumble upon, or we, used to have people that would stop at the York Interstate exit because that's a great place, right? People fuel up, they get something to eat, at Walmart, and they might Google things to do in York, and Wessels would pop up, and we'd have all kinds of people that, didn't intend to stop, but they decided they would, and then next thing you know, they've been walking around for 3 hours, and they've learned all kinds of things. People from the East Coast were always very fun to talk with because everything was new, and and they'd say, "What are those things out there in these fields with these long pipes, and there's two wheels, and then there's two wheels?" And I explained that it's a pivot and it irrigates and how that works, and it's just the things that we're so used to day to day. And speaking with someone that's not from around here, it's extra fun.
Yeah,
it's
you
extra
never
fun.
Think about that, and the stuff that we take for granted too. I mean,
it's the simple things.
It's just crazy to me.
And even just our school kids who live here, who live in rural Nebraska, but maybe they don't come from a farming family, and we do a lot of, what's the difference between corn and beans? What do we grow in Nebraska? What are these fields? What's the difference between sweet corn and seed corn? And is this a combine? Or, what are all these machines? And of course, kids just love that stuff. What are these machines? And can I get up there and turn the wheel and pretend like I'm driving? And if you come to Wessels, yes, you can.
So cool.
So it's a lot of fun to have the kids out there. So I was there, I was there from 2015 I was just there for about 4 years.
Okay.
But yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah, and it is a blast. If you guys have time to stop out, definitely do so. Okay, so Wessels, still big passion, but what came after that? I know, I'm putting you on the spot left and right.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I have a lot of random interests.
Okay.
So I was taking coursework on the side just because I like to understand things. I was probably one of those kids that always asked why. Like, why? Why? So, like I said, I come from a family of DIY. I love renovating houses and that kind of thing. I'm a sucker for a fixer-upper, and I decided I need to know all of these things that like a home inspector needs to know, right? Okay. So I decided I need to know all that. And I was very, very interested in home inspection. So I took all that coursework so that I could be a home inspector. And I left Wessels actually with that intention. Okay. And then COVID hit.
Oh, yep.
And then just other things. Had back surgery.
Oh my gosh.
Just things you don't expect, things you don't plan for.
Right.
And had to reevaluate that plan. But I did spend some time, about a year and a half or so, working at Klein's Blue River in Stromsburg, which is where we live. So that was very interesting. I'm not a mechanic, but, I know a lot of things that I didn't know before. We'll see.
Yeah, there you go. Learning opportunity.
Yes. And with that, we had moved into Stromsburg, but I was always at Wessels and really hadn't gotten to know people there. Mm-hmm. So it was an opportunity for me to kind of get to know the people in the community that I lived in and get involved that way. So I don't know. I like to be involved in things. I love to plan and be involved in all the fun stuff.
Yep.
So with Wessels, there was a lot of event planning and planning for groups and visitors and all of that. And while I was at Wessels, I realized how much I love tourism, Nebraska tourism, but tourism in general.
Yeah.
You know, Wessels it's a tourist attraction, and that's part of what Wessels has to kind of use
Yep.
to attract people for revenue, to keep going, to support the mission, to educate. So so I discovered my love for tourism and that kind of thing. And so being in Stromsburg and then being away from Wessels is what led me to join the Stromsburg Chamber.
Okay.
And I had been on the chamber board here in York when I was at Wessels, and which I loved as well, to be involved in that kind of thing and the discussion about what to do, what not to do, what, the planning and the helping with community events and all of that. So I jumped onto the Stromsburg Chamber Board and have gotten to know people even better through that, and just completely in. I'm all in there now. It's just still on the chamber board. A lot of fun stuff. So,
Yeah. All the things.
It just,
All the things.
one thing leads to another, I guess.
Yeah, doesn't it? So now you're at ASI. Mm-hmm. What is that?
So Advanced Services it's a staffing agency celebrating its 30th anniversary this year.
Ooh.
Yeah. And created by Paul Sandel from York. So if you don't know the Sandel family, they're from York, and a lot of the family is involved in the company, has been at some point or still is. And so it's a company that's grown tremendously. Now there's almost 60 offices across the United States. Wow. And in Puerto Rico. There's a lot going on. It's still growing. Yeah.
Yeah, still growing. What's your position technically?
So I'm a branch manager, which is a little bit misleading because there's the branch, the office on the main floor of the building, which is, the big brown building across from Pizza Hut, if you don't know. That's how I explain it, but they're on Lincoln Avenue. So you walk into that main floor office, and those girls can help you connect with job opportunities around York. I'm up on the second floor. We have a national accounts department, which is what I'm a part of. And the administration office is up there as well. So we have people in payroll, and we have supervisors, and we have our small little national accounts team. And what we do is actually fill jobs around the country where we don't have an office yet. So we have a lot of our customers that we fill jobs for who have locations across the country. So if we don't have an office close to them, we can still support them remotely. And that's what we do up there on the second floor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Do you work with the companies or do you work with individuals? Or
yes.
both?
So it actually is, we have this list of jobs to fill, and we find the people to fill the jobs.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So if somebody comes in to the office on the main floor and they're looking for work around York, they're going to have the list of jobs that we are currently trying to fill for our customers, and try to find the one that's a good fit for you. So they'll talk to you about your skills, your work experience, what you're looking for, your availability, all of those things, and then they'll match you to something that they have.
Interesting.
Yes.
So most of the jobs that you would say you work with, are those a lot of entry level, or is it all the way up to management? How does that work?
Yeah, it's everything. A lot of ag, but entry level. Advanced Services, a lot of people know as how you get into a para position at the York Public Schools, for example, or if you're going to be a bus driver, that goes through Advanced Services. A lot of other customers in town. I don't want to start listing people and leave anyone out, but a lot of customers in the county and, around here. But we do have several offices. It started in Norfolk. There's offices in Grand Island, Hastings, Kearney, York, and on and on. There's possibly even more offices in Iowa than Nebraska now. I don't know.
Oh, really?
I don't know, yeah. Quite a few in Iowa. Concentrated in the Midwest, but then we're sprinkled out there across the United States as well, California, Wisconsin, we've got Idaho and Washington and Texas. I mean, we're
Man.
we're all over.
Yeah.
But yes, more concentrated in the Midwest. But, a company that's just 30 years old has grown tremendously.
amazing. Yeah.
And really, the golden rule is what we go by. Treat others as we want to be treated. And I think our customer service is why it's been so successful. So it's a great company to be a part of. And so, I've just been there almost 3 years now.
Okay.
I've learned a lot. And the last year and a half or so, I've been able to get into training, which, of course, I love. So it's become even more interesting to me because I get to be involved in training our own staff that we hire for other locations, to run other locations or work in other offices or things like that.
I'm Tom Freeman II. I'm President and CEO of Agri Products in York, Nebraska. We are a manufacturer of quality equipment, grain handling.
So, this is a question that everyone kind of gives me a look whenever I ask it, so bear with me. But just out of curiosity, what does a normal day look like for you? I know, everyone's like, what normal
that's fine.
day?
That's easy. It's a lot of being on the phone and online as a remote recruiter. I don't get to meet anyone that I place into a job in person. So it's all over the phone, trying to, which can be tricky to recommend someone for a position, but not really having met them in person. Because, of course, when you meet someone in person, you can really get a better feel for their character or how they present themselves than you can over a phone conversation. Excuse me. But, I'm on the phone, I'm on the computer, and I do a lot of resume searches. I look at resumes all day long. So posting jobs and talking with people, talking with the managers, making sure we know what they need, making sure we have all the details for the job so that we're finding the right people, make sure that our people get paid on time every week. That's a big part of it. So a little bit of payroll. I'm not payroll per se, but I do make sure that all of the folks that I manage have their timesheets filled out and everything so that there's no glitches and everyone gets paid. So, it's a lot of that.
Interesting. Man, I feel like I have so many questions that I don't know if anyone else would be interested in. But I'm very curious.
Go ahead.
No. Okay.
I'll answer what I can.
So I know that a lot of employers are really struggling with hiring. Have you noticed a huge decrease in the number of applicants that you have to work with, or have you kind of felt the effects of that?
Yes, I would say. Now, when I started, COVID, the worst of it was over, right? And the workforce was starting to open up again.
Right.
But there's definitely still that lingering, maybe I don't have to work after all. Or, a lot of people really want to work remotely.
Yeah.
Because they got a taste of it during COVID, but then their employer said, nope, come back. Which is unfortunate because I think a lot of businesses found that productivity didn't go down as they might have thought it would.
Yeah. But
because for one reason or the other, they want people to be back all under the same roof. Some people decided, you know what, I don't want to go back to that. And so we have a lot of requests for remote jobs. We have a lot of people contact us and ask us for remote jobs. And those are actually, I don't have a lot of them that I can offer people. So there's a lot more people looking for them than I would say there are available. Yeah. at least with the customers that we're working with. We do a lot of hands-on. You got to be there physically to do the job. So that's been a struggle.
Okay.
A lot of the workforce is looking for remote or at least a hybrid, which some companies are doing. Like you can do 2 or 3 days at home, but we need you here this often, or they have a schedule like that worked out, which is great for people. But I would say that has been a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. So if you were to give advice to any company that is struggling with finding employees, would you recommend that they see if they can go remote? Or is there any other recommendations that you have?
I mean, that can get into the weeds just because everybody's needs are different and what they do is so different. And company philosophy is different. But I would say don't rule it out if it's a possibility, because happy employees is directly related to productivity, I would say.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. Okay. So let's flip the question over. Do you see something that employers are asking for more than they ever have in the past? Or are they searching for a specific skill or whatever in a candidate?
The first thing that comes to mind is people are asking for those higher level jobs even. Now, some of them, yes, they want this degree or that degree. Most of the managers for the jobs that I work with want experience. They want to know that you can use tools, that you can read a measuring tape. They want to know if you're comfortable operating a forklift. I mean, we do a large variety of things, and some of the positions I've hired for project managers, for example, very high level positions. They didn't ask what the candidates' degrees were in. They wanted to know how many years they've been doing it, what's their experience that led up to where they are now. And people are looking at experience, I would say.
Interesting.
Just as much or more so than, degree. Now, I haven't been in staffing for decades, so it's not like I can say, but in my experience, it's less about the degree maybe than it is the experience.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
People want to know. So, resume tip.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I could talk about that all day long. Make sure that if you're looking for a job, your resume lists your skills, but doesn't just list them. Because anyone can just throw a bunch of skills on paper, but you have to back it up. So if your work history shows you worked at this place and this place and this place, all of the skills that you have listed on that page need to show up so they can tell where those skills are from. Okay, so you've done this for 10 years, you've done this for 10 years, but where? Because I'm not seeing it mentioned in the work history. And that's very important.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So your work history section where you explain not only what your job title was and where you were and how long you were there, but your responsibilities. It's that's the meat of a resume, is what were you responsible for? Mm-hmm. So what skills did you gain from that? What experience do you have? That's what we're looking for.
Okay. Very interesting.
That's
very
helpful.
Interesting. Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
And work history is a huge thing. I mean, people do look at how long did you bounce around from job to job? Mm-hmm. Now, if you were working through a staffing agency, and a lot of those jobs are seasonal, say, especially the ag jobs, there's detasseling and there's pollinating and there's harvest. So a lot of those are seasonal. It's okay to explain that in the resume, in parentheses, seasonal job, just to make sure that nobody misses the fact that, yes, I only worked there for 3 months, but not because I failed at that job, not because I gave up or anything, but because that was the job and I completed it successfully. So it's a good idea to point that out and give yourself credit for that. If you have a gap of employment between one job to the next, that's important to explain that.
In your resume itself?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I'm learning so much. Interesting. Okay, so let's say that I jumped around for one reason or another, but it wasn't seasonal. It was just, I don't know, you didn't find the right fit. Yeah. Who knows? What would your suggestion be when they are to the point where they're like, okay, I need to settle down, I need to find a job, and I'm planning on staying there? Because I know a lot of college kids especially jump.
Right.
Bad.
They're trying out different things, and they're learning what they like and what they don't like.
Right.
I would say think twice before you leave a job that you haven't spent very much time in, because there's always a learning opportunity no matter where you are, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can learn from the people that you're with, you can learn from the job itself. If you're going to make a move from one job to the next, make sure it's not a lateral move. It's got to be a jump in the right direction. Justify it. So,
right.
Maybe the pay is higher. Maybe it's got better benefits. Maybe the hours fit your life or your family's needs. Right. Those are all completely understandable. But let's say you just jump from, not to pick on fast food, but it's an easy example. So let's say you were at McDonald's and then you were Dairy Queen and then you were Taco John's and then you were at Subway, and then
Yeah, something's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that shows that you either don't have much of an attention span. You jump around a lot, or people just questioning, like, why are you jumping? Are you failing, and then you're just trying the next one, and then you fail? That's
right.
when people see a short work history, they want to know what went wrong. Why would you? Because it is stressful to change jobs for most people. That's a stressful thing. So why would you do that if you had a choice not to? So I guess I would recommend, even if you're in a job that is not where you want to be long term, the longer you stay, the more it's going to help you get the job you do want. Because showing your commitment to something,
Yeah.
Even if it's the most entry level position, shows that they can depend on you. If you jump around a lot, it's hard to claim those as solid experiences.
Right.
I spoke to someone this morning, and they're in Idaho, and they're trying to get a production position. And I say, well, do you have experience with this, this, this? And on their resume, I can see they say, oh, yes, I did this, and I did this, and when I was at this company, I did this when I did this company. But you were only there for a month, and you were only here for 2 months. So that doesn't really back up that you have great experience. You were still in training, and you left before you actually knew what you were doing.
Right.
So stick around long enough to master a few things.
Yeah.
And then move on and let that be stepping stones. But if you don't stick around long enough, it's just you're going from one entry level to another entry level, if that makes sense. You want a move to be justified with being a step in the right direction. And if you bounce around too much, you're just going to keep bouncing.
Yeah, absolutely. And for an employer or you looking at a resume, what would you say is a good time frame? What if they've jumped between 3 jobs, but they were at each job for a year? Is that good? Or
yeah, that's much better. I mean, there's all different variations of resumes that you see, but if you've stayed somewhere for a year, it depends on the job you're looking for, because all the managers have different expectations. So that's not a black and white question or answer.
Right.
But the longer you stay anywhere, it's going to be helpful, and with less of a gap between jobs.
So another question, because my brain is just
That's
going
fine.
a million miles a minute. So let's say I am a college kid and I'm on scholarship, so I don't have to work during college. I'm going into the real world, and I don't have any experience. I've never, what
That's
do you
going to
do?
be tough. So I have talked to college students about this not too long ago. My recommendation is, okay, I understand if you don't need the money to get through college, so you don't have to have a job, and that's great, but you do need some kind of experience. So even if it's volunteering at Adopt a Pet twice a week for 2 hours at a time, if you can show that you did this and you did this for 2 or 3 years, then they're going to say, oh, they started this and they just kept, they committed to it.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a full-time job kind of experience. It just has to show that you dedicated some time to something and you were dependable and you showed up,
Yeah.
Like if you were responsible for feeding the cats twice a week, you fed those cats twice a week and you did not fail. And that's great. And put that on your resume. Show that you committed to something and you completed it. Does that help?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does.
Even if it's something small, it doesn't have to be you fit in 30 hours on top of school, but it has to be something.
Yeah, and I feel like we can kind of go back to what you said earlier. If you don't do anything, you don't have a job, you don't volunteer, you're not going to have opportunity to make connections either, which are huge.
Absolutely.
Absolutely huge. So.
Yes. And honestly, if I think of all the places that I've worked, and my favorite places, especially, I got into that because of who I knew and because of running into someone say, hey, you know what? I work here and they're hiring. That's how I got into Epworth Village. And then I was there for a long time. And
Yeah.
that's
So cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it is true. And so many doors open up when you start opening yourself to those conversations and having an open mind about where the next step could be.
Absolutely.
So we're going to kind of go off topic, not off topic. I don't know. So we kind of mentioned that you are still somewhat involved in Wessels. So what do you do outside of your day job?
Okay. Well,
And yeah.
how much time? No.
Yeah.
So, yes, I was the director at Wessels, and then I took a break from that, right? I had other things I was going to try, and then I have returned just recently
Yes.
as a board member because I do love that place. And if you haven't been there, stop by this summer. We're going to have a lot of fun things going on. But so I am now on the board, and you may have seen we are looking for a director. So send your resumes. It's a position that requires you wear a lot of hats, and it's a lot, but it's great. You know, you get to meet people from all over the place, and you get to share the story of Dave Wessels and life on a family farm, and it's a lot of fun. You teach kids and how fun it is to have a busload of kids, and they have no screens. You know, or maybe the kids that are there with grandma and grandpa, and they put their iPads in the car, and they're assuming this is going to be boring, and then they just can't even get them to leave because they're having so much fun with all the hands-on stuff they can do, and feeding the animals, and, you know, all the things. So, and then they want to come back, and that's fun.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of fun events, and you know, a lot of special private events, group tours. You know, you can call and bring your event your group of people, and, you know, request certain things, and we can make sure certain things are available. And of course, it changes with the seasons.
Right.
So we have kids that come out in groups, or even visitors. You know, it doesn't have to be a class, but you come out in the spring, you could help us plant the garden. If you come out in the fall, you could help pick the garden.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Take home some tomatoes. We share.
Yeah.
So we've got apple trees and pear trees, and, you know, when those are ready to pick, and if you're there, there you go. You know, it's a living history farm, and you can spend all day there. You can do a quick walkthrough and just look at things, or unlike your typical museum, you can pick them up. You know, you can use all your senses at Wessels. You feel them, you taste, you know, we taste them. We have cornmeal cookies and lemonade. And there's a lot to do. You could spend an entire day there and really get involved, really use your hands and do things and do activities with your kids, with your family, and talk about, that's the fun part too, is talk about all the fun things you see that people come in and say, oh my gosh, I remember grandma had one of those, or, you know, we used one of these when we were kids, but you never see them anymore. And seeing the generations, you know, if there's a family and maybe it's grandparents, parents, and grandkids, that's sometimes the most fun, because the grandparents get to, oh my gosh, they show their kid, they just take over.
Yeah.
You know, if we're giving a tour and we're explaining things, it's not uncommon that there comes a time where we just stop talking and we just let them do all the work, because they know all those things, are familiar, and they're able to show their grandkids, and then you know, they get excited because they get to see what grandma's life was like, and I don't know, it's pretty fun.
That's so neat. And I actually remember being in camps and going with the school and all that stuff when I was little. So you guys have been doing some really good things for a really long time. Well, I'm not that old, but but for a long time.
Since 2005. So
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Almost 20 years.
That's crazy.
We'll have to have a big party next year.
I love the idea.
Big
Love
event.
that.
Yeah.
So let's say that someone wanted to contact you because either A, they want that director position, or B, they just want to come check out Wessels. How do they get a hold of you?
They can call Wessels right now, because we are in between directors. And it's February. Well, no, it's March.
Yeah.
Look at that. Because it's this time of year, we don't have someone that's there during the day every day. Now, if we had the director in place, they would be, but coming soon. But you can call if we're not able to answer, leave us a message. It's 402-710-0682, or you can email wesselsfarm@gmail.com.
Absolutely.
And if you're interested in the director position, please send your resume to wesselsfarm@gmail.com.
Yeah. And if you guys have any trouble, you don't remember it or anything, just reach out to the YCDC and we can help put you into contact. Never an issue.
Awesome.
So, big question, but what's next? Is there anything coming? Anything down the pipeline?
Just in general?
In general,
That is
yeah.
a big, broad question. I don't know. I just really try to get better at what I'm doing. Like I said, I always want to know why and how. And so, with whether it's my work in advanced services and getting better at doing that and being more involved in being able to train and everything there, which can be really fun, or, my part at Wessels, there's a lot to be done there. There's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, raising funds to try to keep the place open is always in the back of our minds. So, yeah, I don't know.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Who knows? You can see that my path is kind of zigzagged around, so I'm sure that won't change. But no plans to make any major changes right now.
Okay.
Just keeping up with life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep
All the
everything
things.
going. Yeah. Yeah. Help people make connections.
Yeah.
Networking opportunities are fun. You mentioned earlier that networking, and I have to say there are a lot of great programs in York that make that possible. The Chamber does a great job.
Yeah.
What you're doing here does a lot for that. Can't think. Young professionals.
Oh, yeah. They're amazing.
They help with that.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of different things that if you want to get involved in York, it is not hard. If you're not involved,
Get involved.
yeah, it's not because you can't. There are so many opportunities and so many organizations that would just welcome you in and catch you up and utilize your skills, whichever skills you would like to use. There's just so many opportunities, which I have enjoyed about York. I've been involved in all kinds of different things, coached all the things.
All the things.
At some point.
Yep.
Between the swim team and just, t-ball, soccer, some basketball, youth sports. And I encourage parents to have kids playing. Don't be afraid to jump in and be a coach, because you do not have to be an expert to coach a youth sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. And another way to meet people.
Yeah. And that's another thing. If anyone listening wants to be involved but feels overwhelmed, because there are a lot of options out there, you're more than welcome to talk to the YCDC or the Chamber, or, I can point you in a million different directions, but you're welcome to come to the YCDC and we can help you at least know what else is out there and what might be a good fit for you. So I think we're actually running out of time, which is an awesome problem to have. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for our listeners? I feel like you just gave some, but
I don't know.
Yeah. Network, connect, be involved.
Yeah, don't be afraid to be involved, because there's a lot of fun things going on around York County and beyond, but so many things. They work so hard to put on events, and as long as people keep showing up, they'll keep happening, right? So show up, and whether you're involved or just there to enjoy it, I encourage you to do that, because it's a lot of fun to keep things going, and it's I think part of what makes our community so great, and I know Parks and Rec has done so much in the last several years. Kudos to that team, sure.
Yeah. Amazing.
Just so many great reasons to live in and around York and things to get involved in. You don't have to look very hard. It's here. Emily can help you find them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess. Thank you for all of your time. I really appreciate it. And I know I learned a lot, so I'm assuming our listeners did too.
Well, I hope something.
All right. In closing, we would like to once again take the time to thank our members, the people that help us drive change. We would like to thank York State Bank, Henderson State Bank, York General, Meade Lumber Company Incorporated, and York News Times. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Catch you next time.